The morning began with a thermometer and a threat. Marcus Hale hadn't even zipped up his chef's coat when the health inspector appeared, clippered in one hand, a digital thermometer in the other, ready to probe the walk in the hot box and everyone's nerves. It was 7:52 a.m. on a Wednesday, and the kitchen at Rosen Time was already humming with tension. By 8:07, Marcus had passed his portion of the inspection. Barely. The Hollandaise had been 2 degrees shy of danger. By 8:30, his landlord called. "Just a heads up," the voice on the other end said with the flat tone of someone who'd practiced it in the mirror. "Lease is up in a month. Rent's going up. Double starting the 1st. Marcus stared at the phone. Double. "Yeah, market rate. That's not survivable. Then I guess you got 28 days to figure it out." The call ended. No small talk, no room for negotiation, just a countdown. By 5:00 p.m., the dinner prep rush had begun. Marcus was on sauté tonight. He had traded shifts with Tony to make Lily's school pickup earlier in the week. It was the kind of favor that came back to haunt you in the form of garlic oil burns and ticket machines screaming like they had a grudge. His daughter Lily, 9 years old and wise beyond every inch of her scruffy pink sneakers, sat at the back corner of the prep kitchen, her designated safe spot during after-school hours. She was coloring on the last page of her sketchbook, her tiny brows furrowed, one elbow perched on the counter where clean pans cooled. Marcus peeked at her as he wiped his hands on his apron. "You okay, Bug Lily? Didn't look up?" "I'm drawing Mom's smile," she mumbled. "But I forgot the shape of it." Something inside him cracked softly like the sound a wooden spoon makes when it splits from old heat. He glanced around. The line was slammed, but there was a 10-minute window before the first wave of tables hit. Quietly, he reached beneath his station and pulled out a small, unlabeled deli container, the sauce he only made once a year. The one he called Whisper Sauce. It was a warm, golden blend with a peppery cinnamon finish. His late wife's favorite. She had invented it on a rainy Thursday the week Lily was born. Marcus hadn't changed a single ingredient since. He gently spooned a few drops onto a side of rice for Lily and whispered, "One taste." She smiled for the first time that day, lifting the spoon like it was a magic wand. "It smells like hugs." Marcus chuckled but kept an ear out. If anyone caught him bringing personal food onto the line, even for his daughter, it would be his third strike. One more write-up and management would void his contract. Still, he knelt down beside her, whispering, "Some flavors don't shout. They whisper. You just have to listen." 30 minutes later, the evening floor manager, a stiff-collared man named Curtis with the emotional range of a dish towel, marched into the kitchen with a red-inked ticket in his hand. VIP in from corporate. No subs, no allergies, no time for mistakes. He slapped the order on the pass like a warning shot. The whole kitchen stilled. Victoria Sterling. Her name wasn't on the slip, but everyone knew who the corporate VIP was. The CEO of Sterling Hospitality herself was doing surprise walkthroughs this week, evaluating each of their 47 restaurants before renewal season. If she found your kitchen uninspired, you didn't get a second chance. The crew kicked into overdrive. Marcus focused on the pan in front of him, rosemary chicken breast with jasmine rice and a classic lemon beurre blanc. Safe, polished, clean. Behind him, a commis was rinsing out a stack of Cambros plastic containers used for storage. One of them had lost its label, the sauce, inside a near match in color to the beurre blanc. In the chaos, a new runner, nervous new sweating, grabbed the wrong one. No one noticed. The plate left the kitchen at 6:42 p.m., flawless in appearance. It wasn't until 7:15 that anyone realized something had gone wrong. A busser returned with a strange look on his face. Table 12 asked who made the sauce, he said. Said it didn't taste like lemon. Said it tasted like... A memory. Curtis stormed out to the dining room, then returned 5 minutes later, pale. She loved it, he said. Didn't say a word. Just ate. Paid in full. Left a business card. He slapped the card on Marcus's station. A clean ivory square. No job title, no slogan. Just a name embossed in silver Victoria sterling, and one line of handwriting. We need to talk about that flavor. Back at home that night, Marcus stood at the stove, reheating leftover pasta. Lily was curled on the couch, coughing lightly in her sleep. He glanced at the fridge where the recipe notebook sat, tucked behind a magnet shaped like a wooden spoon. He hadn't meant for the sauce to leave the back corner of the kitchen, hadn't meant to break the rules, hadn't meant for her Victoria to taste a part of his family he'd sworn to protect. The incident report was waiting for him at work tomorrow. One more write-up, and he was done. 28 days, no savings, a daughter to feed. He closed his eyes and whispered into the silence. Some flavors whisper, but they don't always wait. By Thursday evening, the storm inside Marcus wasn't from the weather. It was from the memo taped to the break room fridge. Notice: third policy, violation. Contract termination. Subject: outside food on the line. Final written warning issued. Any further infraction will result in immediate dismissal. His name was handwritten at the bottom. And still he showed up. Same station, same apron, same half-mended hope. He hadn't told Lily. What was there to say Daddy might get fired for giving you something that reminded you of Mom No? Tonight, she'd stayed home with Miri from next door. He'd packed her favorite sketchbook tucked beside a PB&J and a folded napkin that read, "Be good, be bright, be brave." But that didn't stop the weight in his chest. The whisper of countdowns ticking. 27 days left. That night at home, Lily curled up next to him on the old couch as the heater buzzed softly. "Did something happen at work?" she asked, her voice barely above a breath. Marcus looked at her, his daughter, with her mother's eyes and a heart too tender for her age. He didn't want to lie, but he couldn't tell the truth either. "I served something. I wasn't supposed to." Lily blinked. "Was it the sauce?" He nodded. "Was she mad?" He paused. "No. She just didn't expect it." Silence lingered between them. Then Lily said softly, "I think maybe she missed someone too." He turned to her. "Why do you think that?" "Because she didn't yell. People who miss someone don't yell. They get quiet." He stared at her heart folding into itself. And in that moment the words came back, his wife's, scribbled years ago in the edge of her notebook next to a grease-stained recipe page. "One day, someone will taste this and remember love." By midnight, Marcus sat alone at the kitchen table staring at the card. He turned it over in his hand, unsure what this was. A threat, a promise, a second chance wrapped in silence. Then his phone buzzed. Subject: let's talk about flavor, from Sterling HQ chef. "Hale, I'd like to invite you to our test kitchen tomorrow at 11 a.m. No HR, no legal team, just food. Let's talk about what you made me feel." V.S. Marcus stared at the screen. His job could still be lost, his lease still ticking down, but somewhere in the chaos a door had cracked open, and maybe, just maybe, someone had listened. At 11 a.m., the Sterling Hospitality Test Kitchen was bathed in pale sunlight. Stainless counters gleamed. Two sous chefs worked silently at opposite ends while a legal rep hovered nearby with a clipboard. Victoria entered without preamble. "You came." Marcus nodded. "You invited me. Good. Let's see if lightning strikes twice." She gestured toward the stove. "Ingredients already laid out. Every spice, every oil. You have full access. Just one rule, no measurements." He looked up. "Excuse me." "Cook it by instinct," she said. "That's how it was made, wasn't it?" He stared at her, this woman of logic and control, giving permission to feel. It didn't add up, but he obeyed. For 20 minutes the kitchen was filled with soft sounds, sizzling, butter ground, pepper cracking under pressure, cinnamon blooming in oil. When he plated, the scent rose like memory made tangible. Victoria took a bite, closed her eyes. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then she whispered, "It's exactly the same." He nodded. "It always is." When she looked up, her eyes glimmered. "You have no idea what this could mean." He frowned. "It's just sauce." "No," she said quietly. "It's connection." She set down her fork. "Come back tomorrow. I'll have papers drawn up. We'll make this official. Official A collaboration. Pop-up concept. 3 nights. If it works, maybe more." He shook his head. "I can't sell my wife's recipe." "Then don't sell it," she replied, standing. "Share it. Let it speak." Before he could respond, she left the room, heels echoing like punctuation. Marcus stood alone, the scent of cinnamon and pepper hanging in the air, his hand brushing the spoon's engraved words. Some flavors whisper. But this one was beginning to roar. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat alone at the kitchen table, the recipe notebook open in front of him, the page with whisper sauce lying like a sacred text between his hands. The ink had faded over the years, but her handwriting still reached out from the paper, curved, thoughtful, full of intention. There was a new stain on the page now. Cinnamon oil, maybe? Or a trace of peppered butter from the test kitchen earlier that day. The old stain had always been there. A mark that spread like half a heart, darkened by time, sealed into the fibers of the paper. And next to it, the note. "One day, someone will taste this and remember love." He reached for the wooden spoon, his wife's last gift, carved with the words, "Some flavors whisper," and ran a thumb over the grain. That morning, Lily woke before the sun. She padded into the kitchen in her oversized socks, rubbing her eyes. "You didn't sleep," she said with the blunt wisdom only 9-year-olds could get away with. "Nope," Marcus admitted, pouring her orange juice. "Was the kitchen big?" He smiled. "Huge." It sparkled. "Did she like it again?" He nodded. "Every bite." Lily climbed onto her stool, swinging her legs. "So, are we going to be rich?" Marcus chuckled. "I don't think that's the point." She thought for a moment. "Then what's the point?" He paused, tapping the spoon against the rim of his mug. "Maybe the point is that someone finally heard what Mom was trying to say." Lily tilted her head. "With a sauce, with a memory." She slid her sketchbook toward him. The newest drawing showed a tall woman with silver hair and a plate between her hands. Above her, Lily had written in big, bubble letters, "Did she remember?" Marcus looked at the image, then at his daughter. "I think she did." Later that day, he sat in the tiny corner of his bedroom that doubled as an office and stared at the email on his laptop. Subject: proposal draft. Pop-up collaboration from V. Sterling, sterlingq.com. Marcus attached is a simple framework for our 3-night collaboration. No buyout, no transfer of IP. We provide the space and the team, you bring the flavor. I've also requested that our legal counsel remove any clause that would prevent you from keeping the recipe in your family. Please review. We'll discuss further at tomorrow's tasting. V. No pressure right. Just the most powerful woman in hospitality handing him the steering wheel of a concept kitchen. Marcus exhaled. He clicked the attachment, skimmed the outline. It was respectful, clean, clear, and underneath it all, fair. He couldn't remember the last time a deal felt like that. At dinner, he reheated some leftover chicken and rice. Nothing fancy. Lily insisted on setting the table with paper napkins folded into triangles like they were hosting royalty. "Will she come here?" she asked, poking at her broccoli. "Who?" "The silver-haired lady." Marcus smiled. "Her name's Victoria." Victoria Lily repeated, testing the syllables. "It sounds kind of sad." He blinked. "Why do you say that? I don't know. Just does." He didn't argue. Kids picked up things grown-ups missed. That night, Lily couldn't sleep. A light cough had returned, the one that came and went with the seasons and old grief. Marcus sat beside her, humming the lullaby his wife used to sing, the same song that made Lily fall asleep for the first time without her mother. She reached up and touched his cheek. "Do you think Mom would be mad we're sharing her sauce?" He paused. "No. I think..." She was waiting for us to. Lily nodded, then whispered, "I think the lady misses someone, too." He blinked. "Victoria." "Yeah." "Why do you think that?" because she looked like she was going to cry but didn't want anyone to see. He was quiet for a moment. "You're a lot like your mom. You know that." Lily smiled. "I know." After Lily fell asleep, Marcus cleaned up the kitchen, placing the recipe notebook back on the top shelf behind the cookbooks. The spoon he left out resting across the cutting board like punctuation on a chapter not yet finished. As he turned off the last light, he noticed something on the counter. A card. It wasn't his. It was Victoria's, still there from yesterday. He must have set it down in the rush and never picked it up again. This time, he flipped it over. The back had one more note. If flavors can whisper, maybe they can also forgive. He didn't know what it meant yet. But it didn't sound like business. It sounded like something else. The next morning, he stood outside the Sterling test kitchen holding the spoon and a fresh copy of the recipe card, this time rewritten by hand, just like his wife used to do. Victoria met him at the door, holding a paper cup of tea instead of her usual sleek thermos. "No coffee today?" he asked. "Not when cinnamon's in the air." She gestured him in. "We're not cooking today. Just tasting." Inside the kitchen was quiet, like it had paused just for them. No sous chefs, no clipboard, no distractions. Marcus noticed something new on the counter. A small antique cassette player. Next to it, a worn-out tape. He raised an eyebrow. "That yours?" Victoria nodded. "Birthday gift. 9th birthday. My mom left me a voicemail that year." She picked up the tape gently as if it might crumble. "It's the last time I ever heard her voice." Marcus didn't speak. She placed the cassette in the player. Pressed play. A soft static crackled, followed by a warm, laughing voice. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Some flavors don't shout, they." The tape cut out. The silence hit like a held breath that never got released. Victoria closed her eyes. "I never got the rest of it." Marcus reached into his pocket, pulled out the spoon, and turned it in her direction. "So, you'll lean in." Her eyes snapped open. "What?" He tapped the handle. "That's the rest of the sentence. It was my wife's favorite saying. Some flavors don't shout. They whisper. So you'll lean in." Victoria's breath caught. Her hand covered her mouth. But she didn't cry. Instead, she picked up the spoon, held it gently, then turned to him. "Let's feed people this feeling." He nodded. And for the first time in a long time, the kitchen didn't feel like pressure. It felt like peace. The Sterling Hospitality legal office smelled like new paper, faint lavender, and caution. Marcus sat at one end of a long mahogany conference table, still wearing his chef coat, the embroidered M. Hale slightly faded from too many wash cycles. Across from him, a pair of attorneys in slim suits clicked pens and highlighted clauses like they were defusing bombs. Victoria Sterling walked in exactly 4 minutes late. On purpose, probably. The room straightened. She didn't sit. She placed her phone on the table, nodded at her lawyers, then turned to Marcus. "I asked them to keep this simple," she said. "But lawyers don't really do simple." A soft chuckle escaped him. "Neither do chefs." She gave a ghost of a smile. "Touché." One of the attorneys slid a stack of papers toward Marcus. The top page read, "Non-disclosure and limited license agreement." He skimmed it. The language was tight, clear, even mercifully short. No IP transfer. No recipe ownership change. Just permission to collaborate for a specific project, the upcoming 3-night pop-up. There was even a clause Victoria had underlined herself. Chef Hale retains full authorship and familial rights to any original recipes used. Smart Marcus said, nodding. "You're protecting your end, but leaving mine intact." Victoria sat now, folding her hands. "You have a daughter. I assume you'd like to pass this on to her someday." He blinked. Yeah, I would. Then it's yours. Legally. Permanently. I'm not here to buy your wife's legacy." There was something in her tone, firm, but not cold. A deliberate choice to be ethical in a world that rarely rewarded that kind of integrity. Marcus signed. The lawyers countersigned. A copy was handed to him in a branded folder gold foil glinting on the cover. Just like that, he had a deal. The test kitchen that afternoon was washed in late-sun stainless steel, catching the glow like a mirror. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and laid out the ingredients on the counter: ginger root, black pepper smoked cinnamon, and a splash of something unlabeled but unmistakably familiar. Victoria leaned against the fridge arms, crossed. "Mind if I watch?" he smirked. "I'd be more surprised if you didn't." As he worked, she observed not as a CEO but as something else. A woman trying to trace her own memory through someone else's hands. "I haven't stepped into a kitchen without a camera crew in 6 years," she murmured. Marcus stirred the base. "That sounds lonely." "Not lonely," she replied. "Just distant." He glanced at her. "You know there's a difference, right?" She hesitated. "I used to." The sauce simmered. The scent, warm, spicy, just a hint of bittersweet, filled the room like a story being told for the 100th time. Victoria inhaled slowly. "That smell," she whispered. "It's like opening a photo album you forgot you owned." Marcus plated the test dish roasted quail with jasmine rice and a single drizzle of whisper sauce. She didn't eat right away. Instead, she walked to the window holding the plate, letting the scent rise to her nose first. "Do you believe in first memories?" she asked, not turning around. "I believe in the ones that stay," Marcus said. She took a bite, and then another. Her posture changed slightly. Shoulders dropped, jaw unclenched. "This doesn't want to be famous," she said. Marcus tilted his head. "Excuse me. It doesn't shout. It doesn't scream innovation. It whispers. Quietly, intimately, like it wants to be remembered by one person, not a million." He nodded. "That's the idea." Victoria turned back toward him. "Then why are you letting me take it public?" Marcus leaned against the counter. "Because the right people might need it, like you did." Silence stretched. 3 nights, she said. "Then we let it decide what it wants to become." Later, as they wiped down the counters together, neither of them mentioning how strange that looked, a janitor turned chef and a CEO with rolled-up sleeves, Victoria's assistant poked in holding a clipboard. "Press wants a name for the event." Marcus looked up. Name Victoria shrugged. "We need something. It'll go on the menus." He paused, thought for a second, then reached for Lily's sketchbook from his bag. He flipped to the drawing she'd made the woman with silver hair, the question above her head. Did she remember? But at the bottom, Lily had written something else, almost like a caption. "Taste of home." Marcus turned the sketch toward Victoria. She smiled. "That's it," she said. "Print it." That night, back at his apartment, Marcus placed the signed contract in the lockbox with Lily's birth certificate and the last Mother's Day card she ever got from her mom. He didn't say anything to Lily about the papers, just let her run through her bedtime ritual, 3 songs, 2 sips of water, 1 whispered secret. Tonight's secret was this. "Do you think Mom sees us?" Marcus kissed her forehead. "I think she hears us. Even when we whisper." He smiled. Especially then. Just before midnight, he played the old voicemail again, the one Victoria had let him copy, the broken tape from her 9th birthday. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Some flavors don't shout, they." He reached for the spoon, held it like a lifeline. "So you'll lean in," he whispered. Not to the tape, to the silence that followed. And somehow in that silence he felt something lean back. The test kitchen smelled different today, not just because of the food, though the spices were present hanging softly in the air like a familiar tune, but because of something less tangible. Today it felt personal. Victoria walked in carrying something unusual, a small square box wrapped in linen cloth, the kind that looked like it belonged in a drawer of forgotten things. Her heels clicked softer than usual, like she didn't want to disturb the space before her. Marcus was already at the stove, stirring a roux slowly, patiently, as if rushing it might break something sacred. She set the box on the counter. It's my birthday, she said without preamble. He turned surprised. Today, she nodded. My 9th birthday was the last one I spent with my mom. Marcus wiped his hands on a towel. I didn't know. No one does, she said, her voice quiet. It's not something I talk about, but the voicemail, the one I let you copy, was recorded that day. She opened the box. Inside was the cassette worn and scuffed and a silver locket shaped like a spoon. It had initials engraved on the back, ECS. She gave this to me before she passed, Victoria continued. Said one day I'd know what it meant. I wore it like armor. Marcus looked down at his own spoon, wooden worn, carved with his wife's words. Some flavors whisper. I guess mothers speak in spoons, he said gently. Victoria actually smiled at that. A real one. They began the day's work side by side, no sous chefs, no cameras. Just two people building something that didn't have a name yet, but was slowly earning one. Marcus prepped the chicken layering flavor with memory rosemary from his backyard smoked salt his wife used to buy from the weekend market, and a hint of cracked pepper, Lily insisted, made it dance. Victoria worked on the rice adjusting texture and moisture until it hit the exact point between soft and structured. Her movements were meticulous, not clinical, but reverent. You've done this before, Marcus said. She nodded. Before I was CEO, I ran the Sterling downtown kitchen for 3 years. He raised a brow. Seriously, I had to prove I could do more than design the logo, she replied, smirking. People respected me more with burn scars. They laughed. But underneath the humor, something shifted. There was an intimacy growing, not romantic, not yet, but built from shared respect. The kind that forms when two people carry grief in one hand and purpose in the other. Later that afternoon, Lily arrived. Marcus had picked her up early from school to see the kitchen. Her eyes lit up the moment she stepped inside. Is this where the flavor lives? She asked, twirling slowly in the bright space. It's one of its homes, Marcus replied. Victoria knelt down to her level. Hi, Lily. I'm Victoria. I heard you're the one who named our event. Lily's eyes widened. Did you like it? I loved it, Victoria said. It's perfect. Lily held out something wrapped in construction paper. I made you a birthday present. Victoria looked startled. For me, Lily nodded. It's a picture. I didn't know what your house looked like, so I drew what I think your home used to smell like. She peeled back the wrapping to reveal a crayon sketch, a kitchen with cinnamon steam curling up to the ceiling, a record player spinning in the corner, and a woman humming while stirring something on the stove. At the bottom, in big bubble letters, Lily had written, Taste of Home. Victoria's throat tightened. She held the picture like it was a relic. Then, something rare, she reached out and pulled Lily into a gentle hug. Thank you, she whispered. I haven't gotten a birthday gift in years. Lily beamed. Then you deserve a really good one. That evening, after Lily had gone home, Marcus and Victoria sat on the back steps of the test kitchen. It was quiet, except for the distant hum of traffic and the faint sizzle of cooling metal behind them. She's special, Victoria said softly. She gets it from her mom, Marcus replied. That ability to feel people before they speak. Victoria turned the drawing over in her hands. You ever worry, she'll forget. He nodded. All the time. I used to think forgetting was the worst part, she said. But it's not. What is remembering alone? The silence between them was heavier than before, but not uncomfortable. Just understood. They returned to the kitchen and reviewed the menu draft for the pop-up. Just 3 nights. 3 dishes. Each one designed around Memory Night 1, the first flavor night, 2, the missing ingredient night, 3, the one that stayed. Victoria tapped her pen on the paper. The third one. That's the whisper sauce. Marcus nodded. It's the one people won't forget. And you're okay with that. He hesitated. I was scared that sharing it would cheapen it. But I think I was wrong. Why, he looked at her steady. Because grief is selfish, but love isn't. She didn't reply right away. Then quietly she said, "I think your wife would have liked that answer." He nodded. "I hope so." As they cleaned up for the night, Victoria reached for the spoon resting on the counter, the engraved one, and turned it over in her hand. Some flavors whisper. Her voice was almost reverent. Then she looked at Marcus. "I never got to hear my mom finish that sentence." He took the spoon back gently, tapping it once on the steel counter like a closing note. "You will," he said. "Just give it time." The next morning, Victoria walked into the boardroom at Sterling HQ carrying a folder that smelled faintly like cinnamon. Inside were the finalized menus for the pop-up 3 nights, 3 dishes, and a story in every bite. But what she didn't bring with her on purpose was the spreadsheet, because she already knew what was coming. Across the sleek glass table sat her COO Gregory Tan and CFO Renee Harlan. 2 sharp minds in sharper suits flanked by charts, risk assessments, and a projected ROI presentation that could have passed for an emergency landing manual. "We've run the numbers," Renee began even before Victoria sat. "And while the concept is compelling, the unit economics are troubling." Victoria tilted her head. Troubling how Gregory leaned forward. "The margins are low. Ingredient cost per plate is nearly double the average for our Tier C kitchens. The menu lacks scalability and the emotional pitch doesn't translate across demographics." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Emotional pitch?" Renee nodded. "Yes, the campaign concept, Taste of Home, it doesn't test well with Gen Z or younger millennials. It's too nostalgic, sentimental. We can't quantify nostalgia." Victoria opened her folder. "You ever lose someone who cooked for you?" The question hung in the room like steam off a hot plate. Neither executive answered. She placed Lily's crayon sketch in the center of the table. "We're not selling a menu. We're offering a moment people didn't know they missed." Gregory cleared his throat. "With respect, Victoria, moments don't scale." Victoria didn't blink. Neither does meaning. But people remember it. Renee folded her hands. "Investors won't care about that." "Then maybe we find new ones," Victoria said, standing. "Ones who care about legacy." The tension was a full-bodied thing now pressing into every corner of the room. Gregory sighed. "Look, we're not saying cancel the pop-up. Just that you'll have to make a choice. Either this is a one-off storytelling campaign, or the beginning of a model we can reproduce." Victoria closed her folder. "If I'm forced to choose, I'll choose the story." Then she walked out. Back at the test kitchen, Marcus was already in prep mode. He'd started early 6:45 a.m., dicing, roasting, simmering. It helped him think, helped him quiet the anxiety that had started tapping on his ribs like a ticking clock. The landlord had sent a second notice this morning. The lease renewal deadline loomed. 14 days left. Rent was going to double. The number stared at him like a threat every time he passed the fridge where the letter was magnet-pinned beside Lily's drawings. He hadn't told her yet. He wasn't ready to let her hope get priced out of reach. Victoria arrived at 10:30, a little out of breath and a little more out of patience. "Morning," Marcus said, sliding a pan onto the burner. She poured herself tea. "You ever argue with someone who thinks numbers have more authority than memory?" Marcus smirked. "You just met my landlord." Victoria gave a dry chuckle. "Coup? CFO. They want the sauce to scream. But it whispers," Marcus said. She nodded, and whispers don't scale. They worked in silence for a while, preparing sample portions for final rehearsal. The rhythm between them had grown comfortable, Victoria managing plating and flow, Marcus adjusting flavor and timing. At one point she turned to him. "Would you be willing to do press?" she asked. He shook his head without even looking up. No. Why? Marcus stirred the pan slowly. "Because then the story becomes about me. And it was never mine. It was hers." Victoria studied him. "Most people would want the spotlight. I'm not most people. I've noticed," she said quietly. Around noon, they sat down for a taste test, just the two of them side by side at the counter like old friends. Marcus plated the final dish, a smoked paprika chicken with rosemary broth and jasmine rice, then spooned over the whisper sauce with care like punctuation. Victoria took a bite, then looked up at him, eyes soft. "You think your daughter will want to keep cooking this someday?" she asked. He paused. "I hope so, even if it means she's not a chef, but a memory keeper." He smiled. "That's all I've ever been." Later that evening, Marcus returned home to find a manila envelope taped to his apartment door. Inside, a formal lease renewal contract, new terms highlighted in yellow. Rent increased by 97%. Marcus leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. The silence of the hallway felt like the space between breaths too long to hold, too short to ignore. He folded the letter and put it on the kitchen counter. Lily was on the floor coloring. "Hey, Bug," he said, kneeling beside her. "Want to help me test a dessert idea tomorrow?" She beamed. "Can I name it?" "Of course." She tapped her chin. "Then I want to call it Taste of Us." He blinked. "That's beautiful." She shrugged. "It's how the kitchen feels when you and the nice lady cook together." He pulled her into his arms and didn't say a word. Back at Sterling HQ that night, Victoria sat alone in her office playing the voicemail again. "Happy birthday, sweetheart. Some flavors don't shout, they cut." She pressed her thumb against the desk, then opened a new document on her laptop. To Sterling Board of Directors. Subject: Updated Strategy for Taste of Home. Pop-up. This is not a campaign, it's a memory bank. We're not scaling a dish, we're preserving the emotional equity of food in an age of speed. If we serve 50 meals each remembered forever, that's more impact than 5,000 served and forgotten. She paused, then typed, "And I'm investing personal capital to protect its integrity, because not all returns are measured in profit." She hit send and sat back. The scent of cinnamon still lingered faintly in her coat. The kitchen lights dimmed slightly, but the air pulsed with a quiet charge. It was dress rehearsal night, 24 hours before the first pop-up dinner, and everything felt like it was holding its breath. Marcus adjusted his apron, lined up the sauces by hand, and exhaled slowly. 3 weeks of preparation, and still he felt like a rookie walking into his first shift. Every motion tonight had to matter. Every flavor, every second, every silence. Victoria stood near the front of the house, clipboard in hand. But for once, she wasn't giving instructions, just observing. Watching how the staff moved, how the timing synced, how the room felt. Her suit was navy. Understated. But she wore the locket, now her mother's spoon-shaped pendant tucked just beneath the collar. She hadn't taken it off since the day Lily gave her that drawing. Marcus had noticed. Fire table 1. Quail down. Rice mid-steam, Marcus called softly. The team, small but sharp, moved with him. The pop-up crew had been handpicked from Sterling's best satellite restaurants. No egos, no grandstanding. Just precision and quiet pride. Victoria stepped into the kitchen without breaking the flow. She watched Marcus prepare the final plate of the night chicken over rice whisper sauce laced in a delicate ribbon. Then her brow furrowed. "Did you change something?" she asked almost casually. Marcus didn't look up. "Nope. Same base, same ratio." She leaned in, took a slow inhale, then a second. "It's warmer," she said. "Less cinnamon, more pepper." He paused, puzzled. "Same blend. Maybe a touch more heat from the stove." She tilted her head. Or maybe. She reached over to the spice tray, plucked the tin of black pepper, and rolled it between her fingers. "This isn't the usual cracked pepper. It's finer, more intense." Marcus checked the tin. She was right. His jaw tensed. 1 gram off and you still caught it. She didn't gloat, because memory has a flavor. And I was expecting mine. He said nothing. Just stared at the spoon in his hand, the same one he always used, and felt the weight of that 1 gram, that one shift. It wasn't wrong, it just wasn't hers, or Lily's. Tension simmered. A silence neither sharp nor loud, but thick like steam rising from a forgotten pot. Victoria folded her arms. It's still good. But it's not right, Marcus said. Right is subjective. No, not for this. He set the spoon down. This flavor isn't mine to change. She softened her stance, loosening slightly. Marcus, you're allowed to evolve. Not this one, he said, quieter now. This is the one thing in my life I promised wouldn't change. They stood there, the ghost of disagreement between them not fully spoken, but not denied either. Victoria broke the silence first. Let's test both versions. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Seriously, we've got a tiny judge in the lobby with a sharp palate and no filter, she said with a wry smile. Let's see which one wins. Lily sat at the center table swinging her legs, sketchbook open, crayons scattered. When the two plates arrived, nearly identical but prepared with the two different peppers, she didn't blink. Victoria crouched beside her. You don't have to say which is better. Just tell us which one feels more like home. Lily took a bite of the first one, chewed, thought, took her job very seriously. Then she tasted the second, and blinked. This one, she said, pointing to the original recipe. It's softer. The other one bites. Victoria smiled. Good catch. But Lily added thoughtfully, the bitey one feels braver. Both adults looked at her. Braver, how Marcus asked. Lily shrugged, like it's not afraid to be new. But this one, she pointed back to the original, this one knows how to hug. Victoria's eyes glistened just a little. And which one do you want to give the world tomorrow? Lily thought. Then quietly said, the hug. After Lily had gone home for the night, the kitchen reset itself in quiet waves. Dishes, stacked towels, hung lists rewritten. Marcus stood by the counter, arms crossed, watching the empty room. Victoria approached with 2 cups of tea. She handed him one. You're not mad, are you? He shook his head. No, I'm just tired. She nodded. Me too. They sipped in silence. Then, almost hesitantly, she said, You know, I used to think success was about sharpness, edges, speed, proof. She looked at him. But this, what we're doing, it's not about that. Is it? Marcus set his cup down. No, it's about warmth, and patience, and trust. They stood there, 2 people whose lives had run too fast for too long, finally learning the pace of something softer. Then Victoria reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the cassette again. The B-side is damaged too, she said, but I still play it. He didn't ask why. He already knew. Before leaving, Marcus walked past the pass line, turned off the main kitchen light, and paused by the rack where the wooden spoon rested. He picked it up, held it in his palm, then looked over his shoulder and said, Tomorrow we serve memories. Victoria, standing in the doorway, nodded. Tomorrow we lean in. The first night of Taste of Home arrived, not with fanfare but with quiet reverence. There was no signage, no media blast, no neon, only a handwritten chalkboard at the entrance of the Sterling test kitchen that read, in soft, cursive, tonight's menu, a memory you forgot you needed. Inside, the lights were dimmed to amber, casting a golden warmth over the space. The tables were draped in soft, cream linen, no centerpieces, just a single lit candle at each flickering like a heartbeat. At the front, Lily's drawing was framed near the host stand. Taste of Home was scrawled in bold crayon across the top. A quiet promise. Marcus stood in the kitchen in his white coat, clean-shaven wooden spoon in hand. The original one. His wife's. The engraving was faded now from years of use, but his grip on it tonight was steadier than ever. Victoria, dressed in a simple charcoal wrap dress, moved through the space like a conductor before a symphony. She wasn't checking details tonight. She was trusting them. At 6:03 p.m., the first guest stepped through the door. He was older, mid-70s maybe, in a navy jacket and a hat too stiff to be new. He walked with a slight limp and looked around like he wasn't quite sure he belonged. A hostess greeted him, gently checked his name on the reservation list, handwritten "No Tech," and led him to a table by the window. As he sat down, his fingers hovered over the hand-drawn menu, then settled in his lap. Marcus peeked from the kitchen. Table 1. Victoria whispered beside him, not asking for action, just marking the beginning. He nodded and turned to the line. Each dish went out the same way, no announcements, no introductions. Just a plate, warm and quiet, laid down like a gift. Whisper sauce went first. Table by table, people leaned in literally after that first bite. The room seemed to hush itself not by request but by instinct. By 7:30, every table was filled. At 7:43, the man at table 1 asked for a glass of water. When the server returned, he wasn't touching his food anymore. He was crying. Not loud, not messy. Just silently, his hands folded beside the plate, eyes red as the candlelight flickered beside him. The server hesitated. "Are you all right, sir?" He looked up, voice rough. "This sauce, it tastes like the night my wife left me her last dinner before the chemo." He paused, then added, "I never thought I'd taste it again." The words traveled through the room without being spoken aloud. Somehow, in the quiet, people felt it. The energy shifted. At 7:50, 2 women asked to sit at the counter instead of their reserved table. "It just feels more like home," one of them explained. By 8:15, a local blogger who had snagged a last-minute seat wrote one line on her notes app and posted it, "It doesn't shout. It whispers you closer." Back in the kitchen, Marcus didn't let the success change his rhythm. He moved with the same focus he'd had on day 1, measured, reverent quiet. But there was something different in his eyes now. Not fear, not pressure, purpose. Victoria stepped into the back briefly, her expression unreadable, and handed him a folded envelope. Someone dropped this off at the host stand. No name. Marcus wiped his hands, opened it. Inside cash, a thick stack, and a note. "For the rent. Pay me back someday or don't. I tasted something tonight I didn't know I missed. A friend." Marcus swallowed. There was no signature, but tucked at the bottom was an old business card, faded and creased from a dishwasher he used to train with 10 years ago. The guy had gone into real estate. They hadn't spoken in years. Marcus tucked the envelope into his back pocket. He didn't need to say anything. Victoria just gave a small nod. At 9:30 p.m., the final plate left the kitchen. Guests lingered long past their courses, talking softly, trading stories with strangers. Some asked for seconds. Others just asked for silence. One woman folded her napkin with care and whispered to the server, "Tell whoever made this, it reminded me of my grandmother's goodbye." Another couple, young maybe in their late 20s, held hands across the table like the food had reintroduced them. No one asked for photos. No one posted selfies. They were too full of something else. By 10:02 p.m., the room was empty again. No applause, just the gentle clink of forks being cleared and water glasses stacked. Marcus stepped out from the kitchen and walked the dining room, slowly taking it in. Every candle still flickered. Every plate had been cleaned almost entirely. On one table, someone had written a small thank you note on the back of the menu. I didn't expect to cry. "Thank you for making food that doesn't just feed, but listens." Victoria joined him near the pass. She leaned against the counter, arms, crossed eyes soft. "That was night 1, she said. 2 more to go, he replied, but this one mattered most. He looked over. Why? Because now we know it's not just about flavor. It's about what people bring to the table with them. Memories, absences, echoes. Marcus nodded, then added, "It's not a pop-up. It's a return." Outside, the wind had picked up. A single napkin had fluttered out near the curb. Marcus bent to grab it and noticed something scribbled faintly across it in purple ink. 3 words. It felt safe. He folded it gently and slid it into his back pocket next to the envelope, then turned toward the door. Back inside, Victoria blew out the last candle. The scent of cinnamon and memory lingered, and tomorrow they'd light it all again. The second night didn't feel like the first. The air was still warm, the candles still flickered, the scent of jasmine rice and peppered memory still curled through the hall, but something had shifted. Tonight the room carried expectation, not curiosity. There were more suits in the dining room now, more polished shoes. A few guests checked watches between courses. A whisper of, "Is this the one that went viral last night?" floated in from the coat check. Marcus noticed it the moment he walked in. It was subtle, but real. Not everyone was here to listen tonight. Some had come to measure. At 6:45 p.m., the kitchen hit rhythm. The plates went out smooth. The whisper sauce was precise. Lily had even written new menu cards in pink pen for each table. Victoria stood at the host stand in a deep forest green dress, calm on the outside, but she'd tapped her pen 13 times against the reservation clipboard before the second course left the kitchen, because she knew who was walking through the door next. Gregory Tan Koo, and not alone. He arrived with a small entourage operations logistics and someone from branding who smelled faintly of ambition and aftershave. Victoria greeted them with grace, seated them at table 4. "Try not to scare the candles," she whispered before walking away. Back in the kitchen, Marcus prepped the next round with his usual quiet focus, but he saw them too through the open window. Watching, timing, evaluating. "Everything all right?" one of the line cooks asked. Marcus nodded. "It's just a different kind of hunger tonight." By 7:30 p.m., Gregory had finished his plate and was already talking. Not to Victoria, not to Marcus, to his team. He spoke with his hands gesturing to the walls, the tables, the flow of service like a general reviewing the battlefield. Victoria approached. Thoughts Gregory folded his napkin. "It's replicable." Victoria tilted her head. "That's not the goal." He gave her a measured smile. "But it could be. We clocked the average table turn at 72 minutes. The kitchen's capable of 20 more covers per night if we tighten the course pacing." "Not interested in pacing," she said. "I'm interested in presence. Presence doesn't fund expansion." Victoria folded her arms. "Maybe it shouldn't." Gregory leaned forward slightly. "Look, I get the sentiment. But people aren't paying for memory, they're paying for food. This could be a national concept. 20 cities. Whisper kitchens. We lead with story, then scale the system behind it." Across the room, Marcus watched them. He couldn't hear the words, but he saw the shift. The slight tension in Victoria's shoulders. The way Gregory's team scribbled notes like they were already outlining a franchise plan. He stepped away from the line. Quietly. Out back in the alley behind the test kitchen, the night was cold and smelled faintly of rosemary and exhaust. Marcus leaned against the brick wall, letting the silence do what it always did, tell the truth. He wasn't built for this. For suits and strategies and 6-month rollouts. He cooked to remember, not to scale. He pulled the envelope from his coat, the one with the rent cash. Still unopened, still unspent. It felt heavier tonight. Inside he found something else, a folded napkin. The one from the night before. He'd almost forgotten. It felt safe. He closed his eyes and breathed. "Thought I might find you out here." Victoria's voice came from the doorway. No heels tonight, she'd changed into flats midway through dinner service. Something more grounded. He didn't turn. "He's already pitching a chain, isn't he?" She stepped beside him. 20 cities. Story-driven, fast casual. Whisper sauce in a bottle by next spring. Marcus exhaled. "I should have seen it coming." "I did," she said. "I just didn't want to admit it." They stood in silence. Somewhere inside, a plate clinked gently against a counter. "You okay?" she asked. He looked down at the napkin in his hands. "We built something that makes people cry, and someone else wants to turn it into a commodity." Victoria leaned against the wall beside him. "That's the danger of things that matter. They make money nervous." He laughed under his breath. "You're not like them." "No," she said. But I used to be. He turned to her. So what now? She didn't answer right away. Then finally, we finish the night. Then I make a decision. Inside, the night began to quiet. Dessert had been served. Candles burned low. A woman at table 9 left a folded note on her plate. The server brought it to Marcus without saying a word. He opened it. "Thank you for giving me back my sister." For the first time in years, she talked about the night our mother made stew after the funeral. We hadn't said her name out loud since. Tonight, she did. Victoria read it over his shoulder. Neither spoke. Then Victoria whispered, "I know my decision now." At 10:02 p.m., as the staff reset the room for tomorrow, Victoria gathered the team in the dining room. No podium, no announcement. Just her voice, clear and even. "We're not scaling this," she said. "No chains, no expansions, no bottle deals." Gregory, who had stayed behind, blinked. "Victoria." She held up a hand. "I'm not asking permission, but the board, I'll fund the permanent space myself. One restaurant, small, reservation only. No logos, no influencers, just meals that whisper." The room held still. Gregory scoffed gently. "Why?" She looked at Marcus, then back at the team. "Because some things don't shout. They lean in, and they remind us who we are when no one's watching." Then she walked out. Marcus stayed behind, wiping down his station long after everyone left. He placed the napkin on the shelf above the sauce line, taped it there, then whispered to the room, "We're not selling comfort. We're serving return." The third and final night of Taste of Home arrived wrapped in a strange kind of stillness. It wasn't quiet because the world outside had hushed, but because the people inside had settled into something deeper, something heavier than excitement. Tonight wasn't about curiosity or even return customers. It was about closure. Marcus felt it the moment he stepped into the kitchen. The ingredients were all the same. The station was clean. The whisper sauce had simmered low and slow since 9 a.m. But something in his chest felt different. Tonight was goodbye. Even if the restaurant would live on tonight marked the end of a chapter. A story told across 3 dinners, 3 nights, 3 chances to remember something that had once been lost. He tied his apron tighter, ran his thumb along the spoon handle. The engraving had almost worn smooth. At 5:58 p.m., Victoria stood by the window in the private office behind the dining room watching the streetlights flicker on. She hadn't dressed for power tonight. No suit, just a simple blouse and flats. Hair tucked casually behind one ear. The locket her mother gave her rested just above her heart. Her phone buzzed. A message from Gregory. Investors still asking for the full concept doc. "You sure you want to walk away from scale?" She typed back one sentence. Some flavors whisper, "They don't sell," and turned her phone off. Guests filtered in slower tonight. Not late, just deliberate, as if they already knew to treat the evening as sacred. A couple in their 80s held hands as they were seated. A father carried his daughter, maybe 5 years old, on his shoulder before setting her down at the counter seat near the kitchen. And at the very back table, a woman with a photo frame in her purse ordered 2 plates. No one asked for music. No one pulled out their phones. The room didn't need sound. It had memory. At 7:22 p.m., Marcus sent out the first entree. He plated it himself, same as always. No flourishes, just intention. The scent hit the air, cinnamon, black pepper, citrus warmth, and across the room shoulders softened. Eyes closed. Some even pressed fingers to lips without realizing it. Marcus looked through the pass and found Victoria near table 5, speaking with a man in a dark overcoat. He recognized him instantly. Property owner. The one who held the lease to Marcus's current kitchen, the one about to double the rent. The man leaned close, shaking Victoria's hand. Then made his way to the kitchen. "Marcus Hale." He turned. "Yes, sir." The man extended an envelope. "I'm terminating your lease," he said flatly. Marcus's heart stopped. "What?" But the man added, holding up a finger only because someone else just made an offer to buy the building. Marcus blinked. Someone's buying it. She didn't give her name, just wired the deposit and requested one condition. Marcus's voice tightened. What condition? That the space remains a memory kitchen. He opened the envelope. Inside was a notarized letter, Victoria's signature at the bottom. Marcus stared at it, stunned. You have a new landlord, the man said. Congratulations. And just like that, he turned and walked out. Victoria appeared beside Marcus not a moment later, face unreadable. You bought the building, he said quietly. She nodded. Not for a chain. Not for scale. For me. For the story, she said. Then added gently, and maybe, for you too. Marcus swallowed hard. Why? She shrugged. Because some places aren't meant to disappear. He looked at her. Really looked. And this time he didn't just see a CEO, he saw a daughter, a woman who had spent decades building walls now offering shelter. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Solid. Quiet. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet, she whispered. Your speech is up. My what? She turned him around. The room had fallen quiet again, but now all eyes were turned toward the kitchen window. Victoria stepped to the center of the floor. I don't usually speak in places like this, she began. I'm better behind the curtain, better with control. A few soft laughs. But 3 nights ago, something happened. We watched strangers become storytellers. We watched food become memory. And we watched a quiet chef remind us that flavor doesn't have to shout, it just has to mean something. She turned toward the kitchen. He doesn't want the spotlight. But tonight isn't about a spotlight. It's about gratitude. She extended her hand, and Marcus stepped forward. He didn't prepare anything. He didn't need to. He looked out over the room. People weren't clapping. They were waiting. He cleared his throat. This sauce started as a whisper. My wife made it the night before Lily turned 1. She never wrote it down. She didn't have to. It was in her hands, her eyes, her voice. He looked at Lily sitting near the pass, proud feet dangling. I thought keeping it quiet was protecting it. But some things only live if you share them. He glanced at Victoria. So, thank you. For listening. And for reminding me that the point of memory isn't to keep it locked away, it's to feed the ones still here. He stepped back, said no more, and that was enough. At 9:45 p.m., the final dish of the pop-up was served. Marcus placed it in front of a woman at table 7. She smiled at him. My mother used to sing while she cooked, she said softly. I haven't remembered that in 20 years. Until now. He nodded, and left her with her plate. In the final hour, the guests thinned. The lights dimmed lower. The candles burned close to their wicks. Marcus and Victoria stood at the back of the kitchen. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the cassette. I had it digitized, she said. He raised an eyebrow. Did they recover it? She nodded. You want to hear it? He hesitated. No. She smiled, understanding. Me neither. She placed the USB next to the wooden spoon on the counter. I'm not ready yet, she added. But I know I will be. He looked at her. When you are, you won't need it. And for the first time, Victoria didn't respond with words. She just leaned in. The sign outside the restaurant didn't glow. It didn't blink or spin or shout. It simply hung from an old hand-forged bracket above the door with 4 words etched in weathered walnut whisper and coest. 1 year ago, today. There was no tagline. No photos in the windows, no QR codes, hashtags, or promotional flyers. Just the soft scent of peppered cinnamon curling through the wooden frame and into the street, drawing people closer the way stories used to by memory, not marketing. Inside, the dining room glowed with soft, golden light. 10 tables. That was it. Reservations booked months in advance, but still no press nights, no celebrity interviews, no viral videos. It wasn't designed to go viral. It was designed to feel known. The walls were lined with framed recipe cards, handwritten aged, some smudged with oil and ink and time. One card in particular hung in a place of honor near the kitchen pass, a grease-stained page with a faded note. "One day, someone will taste this and remember love." Next to it, in a matching frame, hung a crayon drawing. A house with smoke curling from the chimney, a woman stirring a pot, and a little girl at her feet with stars in her eyes. At the bottom, in blocky, joyful handwriting, "Taste of Home." Signed, Lily Hale. The kitchen moved with quiet rhythm. It was early evening, and prep had just turned to service. Marcus stood at the stove ladling sauce with the same wooden spoon he had refused to replace, its carved words barely visible now, but still etched deep into his hands. "Some flavors whisper." The rest of the sentence lived in the kitchen now. It was spoken without words, and every plate, every pause, every moment someone leaned in after their first bite and closed their eyes. He looked toward the pass and smiled. Lily stood beside it, apron on her hair tied in a messy bun, concentrating hard as she carefully placed 2 desserts on a tray. She'd insisted on creating the dish herself, called it "Taste of Us." A delicate trio. 1 cinnamon custard, her mom, 1 lemon shortbread cookie, her dad, and a small glass of rosemary milk foam with gold flakes, hers. Marcus had cried the first time she made it. He didn't tell her. She knew anyway. At 7:15 p.m., a woman entered wearing a gray coat and a quiet smile. She was alone. She didn't ask for a table, just stood for a moment near the doorway, letting the air wrap around her. Victoria. Her hair was longer now, loosely curled. The pendant spoon still hung just above her heart, and when she stepped toward the host stand, Lily greeted her first. "We saved your table," Lily said proudly. "Like always." Victoria crouched just a little and whispered, "How's the dessert holding up?" Lily grinned. "Sold out 3 nights in a row." "You should consider franchising," Victoria teased. Lily scrunched her nose. "Dad says franchises don't whisper." Victoria laughed. "He's right." Marcus looked up as Victoria entered the kitchen. No clipboard, he asked, pretending to squint. No data reports. She held up a folded napkin. "That's the only KPI I need tonight." He laughed and nodded toward the pass. "Your table's ready. Mind if I eat back here?" she asked. Kitchen always smelled more honest than the dining room. "Help yourself." She perched on a small stool near the prep station, eyes following the flow of the kitchen. Calm, present, peaceful. Marcus slid her plate across. Whisper sauce exactly like that first night. He didn't need to ask. Victoria took 1 bite, closed her eyes, smiled, still the hug she whispered. The night passed gently. At 8:45 p.m., Lily brought out the final tray of desserts. One was placed at Victoria's spot, a small version of Taste of Us with a note folded beneath the plate. Victoria opened it. It read, "Do you think Mom would like her seat next to yours?" Lily Victoria blinked back something that almost came loose in her chest. She glanced toward the stool beside her. Empty, waiting, sacred. She didn't speak, just nodded. After service, the staff gathered in the kitchen for their now weekly ritual. No speeches, no checklists, just 1 minute of silence. Marcus started it by tapping the spoon on the countertop. It wasn't about meditation or routine. It was just space. Space to feel what the day had meant. Space to remember who wasn't there. Space to thank the recipe that had never been written, only lived. At the end of the minute, Lily placed a single tape recorder on the prep table. It was vintage rebuilt, and inside was the digitized version of the voicemail Victoria once couldn't finish. She hadn't played it since the pop-up, but tonight... She pressed play. The static came first. Then the warm voice, "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Some flavors don't shout, they know cut. No silence, just the final line restored. They whisper, so you'll lean in. Victoria closed her eyes. Marcus reached across the table and rested a hand on hers, and Lily, without a word, rested her head against both. Later that night, as the last candle burned low, Marcus locked the front door. The wind outside was crisp autumn curling into winter. He turned the sign, gently closed. But beneath it, in Lily's handwriting, someone had added with a marker, "But not for long." Inside, Victoria stood at the counter sipping warm tea, watching Lily draw new menus for the weekend. She looked at Marcus. "She's going to keep it alive, you know." He nodded. That was always the plan. They stood in silence. Then Victoria whispered, "Do you think we did it right?" Marcus smiled, eyes soft. "We didn't build a restaurant," he said. "We built a place to remember. And maybe that's the quiet magic of stories like this. They don't always end with fireworks. They end with a whisper that stays in your heart. If you've ever tasted something that brought back a memory, if you've ever found healing in a kitchen or comfort in someone's silence, or if you've witnessed a moment where kindness changed everything, we'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and share it with us. Who knows, your memory might be the one that helps someone else heal too. And hey, where are you listening from today? Let us know your city or country. We always love seeing how far these stories travel. If this story moved you, if it made you pause, remember, or feel something you didn't expect, please consider subscribing. There's more where this came from. More healing, more hope, more reasons to lean in. Thank you so much for spending your time with us. Until next time, stay kind, stay human, and never stop listening to the flavors that whisper.